Hello, many thanks for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour with the news. I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us.
Excellencies, heads of state and government, first ladies, heads of state, excellencies and men from an international organization. The government, excellencies,
It is high time that the continent's voice on the world stage be heard loud and clear. However, there have been lots of impediments in the way of this happening. For far too long, the continent of 1.3 billion people lacked a truly African media that represents it on the world stage. Speaking here today at the opening of the 35th Ordinary Session of the African Union, Premier Abiy Ahmed said the lack of this type of media was a huge cost to the continent in the face of coordinated Western campaigns to twist reality. Kazahun Chane has the details on this.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has called for the establishment of a media outlet that could be the voice of the continent under the auspices of the African Union. If realized, this could be a breakthrough for a continent whose voice at the world stage was muffled due to Western media campaigns. Speaking at the opening of today's African Union Summit, the Prime Minister said coordinated media attack and disinformation is costing Africa.
Africa is often portrayed in international media negatively. The endless representation of the continent troubled by civil wars, hunger, corruption, greed, disease and poverty is demeaning and dehumanizing and likely driven by a calculated strategy and agenda.
Africa's media representation on the international stage is equally important and must be addressed urgently.
This stereotypical and negative media representation of Africa not only disinforms the rest of the world about our continent, but also shapes the way we see ourselves as Africans. Telling our own stories and shaping our own narratives must be our top priority.
This helps fill the information gap over and above helping the continent stand up to fake news by Western media outlets and deliberate distortions, as to the Premier.
In this regard, I would like to propose to this august body the establishment of an African Union Continental Media House. This media house could be organized to provide authoritative news and information on our continent.
He elaborated that this media house could be organized to provide trustworthy news and information on the continent and fight disinformation, promote collective agenda, and offer opportunities for Pan-African voices to be heard.
Meanwhile, a delegate from Cameroon says the call by Prime Minister Abiy for a continental media is commendable. The delegate said the stereotypical and negative media representations of Africa not only misinforms the rest of the world about our continent, but it also shapes the way we see ourselves as Africans. Take a listen to this.
It is a very welcome initiative because, as you know, the media is a major outlet for information diffusion, and people work with a lot of information. So if wrong information is diffused, it can cause a lot of confusion. So when we have a media platform that speaks for us, that speaks to us, it is going to be beneficial for the continent. The promotion of youths, I think that is one of the items on the agenda 2063, promotion of youth development. Yeah, so I think when we look at the deliberations, there is also a place for that. Yeah, so and for us as the youth, we have to be involved in the economic development of the continent. We have to seek employment, we have to create employment, we have to create business ventures.
Pleased with the warm welcome by the Ethiopian government, the delegate witnessed that Addis Ababa is peaceful and calm, unlike the grim picture provided by Western media outlets using fake security alarms.
Yeah, so we had a warm welcome. We have had a good start to the AU summit, and everything so far is going on well. What I'm observing is a warm and welcoming attitude towards change, towards development, towards peace, and that is what we all want. So I'm hoping that we are going to have fruitful deliberations which are going to be beneficial to the continent.
Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed called for cooperation among African nations in demanding 2 permanent seats on the UN Security Council. Addressing the AU's 35th Heads of State and Government Summit here in Addis Ababa today, the Premier expressed gratitude for Africans for their support to the Eastern African nation during its trying times. The greatest lesson that Ethiopia has learned over the past year is that without the solidarity of our African brothers and sisters, our existence as a nation would have been at great risk, the Prime Minister underlined. Take a look.
Let us all unite and celebrate together.
Prime Minister Abiy echoed long-standing appeals for Africa to have no fewer than 2 permanent and 5 non-permanent seats in what would become a 26-seat council. It's time that the reform at the United Nations addresses the obstacles caused by the imbalance resulting from the determination by some to preserve their entrenched self-interests.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Africa's voice on the world stage needs to be heard loud and clear. Africa must also be represented on important international bodies. Today, more than 7 decades after the creation of the United Nations, Africa remains a junior partner without meaningful input or role in the system of international governance. This is particularly true of the United Nations, where Africa lacks representation on the Security Council and is underrepresented in a variety of ways. It is the right time to reform and revitalize the United Nations system to reflect current global realities and ensure that it is a more representative and equitable body. Only fair representation and transparency in those institutions can usher in a just era in multilateralism. Consistent with our Esluini Consensus of 2005, we should collectively insist that Africa's reasonable request for no less than 2 permanent seats and 5 non-permanent seats in the UN Security Council be adopted.
Expressed gratitude for Africans for their support to Ethiopia during its trying times. The greatest lesson that Ethiopia has learned over the past year is that without the solidarity of our African brothers and sisters, our existence as a nation would have been at great risk, the Prime Minister underlined.
Peace and security are critical issues affecting our continent. Despite the African Union's intensive engagement in addressing peace and security challenges of the continent, guided by the maxim African solution to African problems, new and complex problems that undermine our unity and sovereignty continue to emerge. In this respect, the past year was particularly challenging to our continent in general and my own country, Ethiopia, in particular. Ethiopia's challenge was internal in nature and a matter of maintaining law and order. but resolution of our internal matters was made exceedingly difficult by the role played by external actors. I wish to take this opportunity to thank you all for your support, solidarity, and understanding as we underwent these trying times. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the greatest lesson that Ethiopia has learned over the past year is that without the solidarity of our African brothers and sisters, our existence as a nation would have been at great risk. This affirms the wisdom of our forefathers and foremothers in their dream of Pan-Africanism. The old saying is true: united we stand, divided we fall. Today, we stand proud and tall as Africans in the shadow of those who struggled to liberate and unite Africa.
He stressed the need to expedite efforts to ensure a prosperous Africa through sustainable development activities. Prime Minister Abiy indicated that Ethiopia launched the Green Legacy Initiative in 2019 so as to mitigate climate change, thereby enhancing productivity of the agricultural sector and ensuring food security.
Over the past year, acute food insecurity in Africa has increased by over 60%. The effect of COVID-19 continues to aggravate our fragile economies. Floods, droughts, desert locusts, and other climate-related natural disasters have increased food insecurity for millions of our citizens. With 60% of the world's arable land in Africa, it is of utmost importance that we need to use our natural asset to maximize agricultural output and feed our people without reliance on external assistance. In the past 2 years, Ethiopia has made substantial investment in intensifying in summer wheat production through irrigation. Our farmers have been able to control and manage production factors to maximize yields using irrigation. Nationally, we have attained production over 20 million quintals of irrigation wheat farmed on over 500,000 hectares. This has generated nearly 60 billion birr in income to our farmers. These efforts are generating great results and will, in the imaginable future, begin to contribute to our food security and self-sufficiency, despite the climate variability our region is confronted with. One of the toughest challenges we face in Ethiopia is dealing with the effect of deforestation. While a century ago, Ethiopia's forest coverage was 35%, over the past 2 decades, our forest coverage stands at just 4%. We believe afforestation is one of the most effective ways of climate change mitigation. Beginning in 2019, we launched a major reforestation initiative under the slogan Green Legacy. Our aim was to plant 20 billion trees across the country over the course of a 4-year period. In a mere 3 years, we managed to plant 18 billion seedlings. And this year, with the Green Legacy Initiative in its final year, we will not only meet our national target, but plan to surpass the target by reaching 25 billion. Additionally, through this initiative, we have sent seedlings to neighboring countries to inspire regional efforts. If we can collaborate to spread the message of Green Legacy in the continent and implement measures that maximize our food security and self-sufficiency, we will be able to guarantee our citizens the basic necessity of life without reliance on charity.
Let us all unite and celebrate together.
A dinner event for the African leaders is underway at Friendship Square. Our staff reporter Shifarao Lako is in attendance of the event. He joins us to tell us more. Shifarao Lako, please begin by telling us the general vibe of the event and also touch on the major focus points of Premier Abiy's speech.
Thank you. As you have said, a gala dinner is prepared here, and dignitaries are attending and participants of this dinner. High-ranking government officials, including Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, are attending here, and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has addressed the gathering here. He said, "Welcome to your second home, Ethiopia, and welcome to Addis Ababa, which is the political capital of Africa." He said that Addis Ababa is changing from time to time. And also, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said the night holds unity and friendship. And this gala dinner is thrown in order to, as a token of appreciation for African leaders, heads of states that stood by Ethiopia at such a critical time that in the midst, the country is in the midst, as you know, in the midst of various narratives tarnishing the image of Ethiopia in an apparent move to take this summit out of Addis Ababa. However, the fact that Addis Ababa is now holding this summit speaks volume in itself, that the city is safe and sound, and it is, you know, as you know, capable of hosting huge international events, and this African AU summit is one of them. And this gala service is also a token of appreciation to African brothers and sisters. So Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed said Addis Ababa is working hard to become a continent-wide city, to live up to its name, which means new flower. And also he has wished beautiful time and beautiful evening, so the dignitaries here are enjoying themselves. And also, it's, even if it's kind of a little bit cold here, everybody seems to be happy and they are enjoying themselves. And one of the most important thing is that Ethiopia is hosting this event. As I said, it speaks volume, and Africans are together despite challenges, and Addis Ababa, beating all odds, is holding this 35th AU summit, and this by itself is a great success. Back to you, Tabitha.
All right, Shifarao Lako joining us live from Friendship Square. Thank you very much for that.
The tears of Africans is too dried out. The African Union has come about. The long dream of Pan-Africanism has come through, with much prospect in the future to do. So all Africans, let's work with our union. Africa wants to see peace, love and prosperity.
አስተሳሰብ የአዲስ ቃና ብስራት
አጥናፍ አጥናፍናኝ የአፍሪካችን ህብረት
የአዲስ አስተሳሰብ የአዲስ ቃና ብስራት
አጥናፍ አጥናፍናኝ የአፍሪካችን ህብረት
በልጆችሽ
በልጆችሽ በዜጎችሽ
ህልማቸው ተፈታ ህልማቸው ተፈታ በአፍሪካ 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 በአፍሪካችን ህብረት ምስረታ በአፍሪካ 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 በአፍሪካችን ህብረት ምስረታ እንግዲህ አክትም እንግዲህ ይብቃ የልጆች አምባ ራብ ሰቆቃ እነት ስደት የችግር ቀንበር ይወገድ ከአፍሪካ ምድር ይቅር በዓለም ስማችን እንግዲህ አክትም እንግዲህ ይብቃ የልጆች አምባ ራብ ሰቆቃ
Welcome back. Solidarity among Africans and ensuring state sovereignty in the African continent is said to be crucial. The remark was made here today by Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mahamat, at the opening of the 35th Ordinary Session of Assembly of Heads of State and Government of the AU. President Macky Sall of Senegal has also been elected as new Chairperson of the African Union for the year 2022. Jerusalem Betha tells you more.
The 35th Ordinary Session of Assembly of Heads of State and Government of AU has kicked off today in the presence of leaders of 55 member states, representatives of international organizations and officials of AU organs. On his opening remark, Chairperson of the African Union Commission, Moussa Faki Mahamat, stated that there are two major issues constraining the Commission's decision-making process.
The first is the narrow reading of the concept of subsidiarity. We certainly need to clarify better the relationship of subsidiarity and complementarity between the regional economic communities and the continental organization. Beyond, however, to declare here and there that the decision of an organ of the AU, in this case the Peace and Security Council on Mali, should be dependent on the decisions of a regional organization, namely ECOWAS. There is really a big gap. It is important that our summit brings here the necessary clarification to avoid any detrimental drift to the functioning of our political and security architecture. The second problem, to consider the question of the sovereignty of states. This is a protective shield against all sorts of abuses occurring in a member country.
Moussa Faki called on African member states for solidarity and to ensure state sovereignty in the African continent.
Solidarity and state sovereignty made any proactive action by the Commission impossible. This situation can only result in a gradual slumber of the role of the leader of the organization at the political and diplomatic levels. In this effort to awaken the organization through an inventive reflection of the best modes and models, how can we not question our democratic systems and our peace and security architecture? Have these been able to promote operations ensuring the minimum of good governance? The fight against corruption, nepotism, mismanagement, exclusion, have they made it possible to fulfill our dream of an Africa where we have silenced the guns? Are we determined enough to reform our Peace and Security Council? Have we mobilized enough efforts for the reform of the United Nations Security Council by opening, when the time comes, a credible corridor for Africa to enter this body in charge of peace in the world?
The heads of state and government of the African Union have elected today President Macky Sall of Senegal as the new chairperson of the African Union for the year 2022. The president took over the baton of command from Felix Antoine Tshisekedi, president of the Democratic Republic of Congo, who concluded his term as the chairperson of the African Union for the year 2021. President Tshisekedi highlighted some of the achievements under his chairmanship of the Union, notably the economic empowerment of the women and the youth, the enhancement of democracy and good governance, among other development programs under Agenda 2063.
Investing in sustainable and equitable development in the post-COVID period is to develop the capacity of Africa to manufacture innovative products in science, in technology, in digital economy, in green economy, inter alia. Our youth are ready to position themselves as major stakeholders in all sectors of globalization notably through access to youth credits and through the multiplication of industrial parks devoted to startups. It is therefore indispensable to accord important support to the African Fund for Youth and to develop the Youth Academy for Change.
In his acceptance speech, President Macky Sall said the continent should focus on working on in the areas of peace and security, the fight against terrorism, environmental protection, health and economic and social development.
The urgent need for peace and security reminds us of a special responsibility in the fight against terrorism, the peaceful settlement of disputes between member states, and to take care of the situations of internal crisis. We cannot turn our face away from all these lives that are lost, the bereaved families, the millions of displaced persons or refugees, these schools and health facilities that are closed, and disintegrated social cohesion. Our common sense call on us to silence the guns and entrench a culture of dialogue and consultation within the framework of the African Mechanism for Conflict Resolution.
Sall also appreciated the founding fathers of the organization. Glowing vision continues to inspire Africans to live together and to illuminate their united march towards the ideal of African integration.
Various African leaders have arrived in Addis Ababa today. Accordingly, President Patrice Julian Athanas Talon of Benin has arrived today in Addis Ababa to participate in the ongoing AU summit. Ethiopia's Minister of Tourism, Nasise Jali, has accorded a warm welcome to the president upon his arrival at Bole International Airport. Presidents of Mozambique, Filipe Nyusi, Djibouti, Ismail Omar Guelleh, and Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, have arrived in Addis Ababa to participate in the 35th AU Summit. High-level government officials accorded the presidents a warm welcome upon their arrival at Bole International Airport. Also today, Amina Jane Mohammed, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, has arrived in Addis Ababa to participate in the 35th Ordinary Summit of the AU. Similarly, Egyptian Foreign Minister Sameh Hassan Shukri has arrived in Addis Ababa. AU summit in the Ethiopian capital is the first in-person summit instead of a video link in more than 2 years. The newly established Africa Center for Disease Control, Africa CDC, is leading efforts to keep the two-day summit COVID-free. Top on the summit's agenda is how to step up vaccination against COVID-19 in the continent. Although COVID vaccine supplies in Africa have risen significantly, the continent is struggling to expand rollout with only 11% of the population fully vaccinated. Listen to this.
The decision to hold the summit in person since the advent of the pandemic was taken with the express decision that we are going to make it safe.
Africans' heads of state and government gathered here will also discuss another epidemic of multiple coups in the continent. Emboldened by popular anger, West African military leaders in Mali and Burkina Faso have carried out coups. They followed military takeovers in Sudan and Chad in 2021. There are now increasing calls for more action from the continental body. The resurgence of coups has alarmed West Africa's remaining civilian leaders, who on Friday called an emergency summit of the Regional Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS.
Not really fall into the illusion that the military takeover will solve the problem. They cannot solve the problem, and they will not solve the problem, because we have seen it in the past.
Strategies that would turn COP27 into an African COP should form a major part of the AU leadership. Talking to ETV English here today, Mithika Mwenda, Executive Director of Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, said AU leaders and UN climate change summits should come up with key issues to alleviate climate change in the African continent. Shagao Yamato has this report.
Increasing temperatures and sea levels, changing precipitation patterns and more extreme weather are threatening human health and safety, food and water security, and socio-economic development in Africa, according to reports. The Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance is a coalition from across more than 50 African countries, which comprised of community-based organizations, indigenous communities, farmers and pastoralist groups, with a shared vision to address climate and environmental challenges facing humanity in the African continent. The Alliance is working with African governments to ensure climate change is mainstreamed into continental, national and local climate intervention and policies at all levels. Talking to ETV today, Mithika Mwenda, Executive Director of Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance, said African Union leaders and United Nations Climate Change Summits should come up with key issues to alleviate climate change in the African continent.
We are happy that the COP27, the UN Climate Conference, is going to be held in Africa as well, and we are happy that the Committee of Heads of States and Governments on Climate Change is meeting tomorrow ahead of the summit, so that they come together and come up with guidance and come up with the issues, key issues for Africa, the aspirations and the priorities for this continent in this global meeting. In terms of climate change, we are talking about the adaptation finance is going to be a priority for us. That is doubling or increasing finance for adaptation, because that's priority for Africa. And the recognition of Africa as special needs and circumstance region in the negotiations. We need really to address loss and damage, because many countries, you look at what is happening in Southern Africa, the cyclones which have killed many people in the Horn of Africa. You can see the drought-related, drought and climate-related droughts which are really affecting us, including Ethiopia here.
The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and all scientific reporters have stated that Africans will suffer from food insecurity because of reliance on rain-fed agriculture and nature, he added. The director, who noted that climate indirectly affects food security, further outlined ways to change the agricultural practices in Africa.
We need really to change our even systems, the way we do agriculture. We rely on rain-fed agriculture. We have to revert. We have to diversify. We have to revert on irrigation. And that's how we have no choice. And then we address the land tenure systems who own our land. That's again very important. So if all these things are adopted, then we have sufficient land, but it is never utilized because we still rely on very rudimentary systems and instruments, equipment, when we need really to modernize our agricultural systems.
The COP27 conference, to be held in Egypt later this year, is expected to deal with the Agenda 2063 Strategic Development Blueprint. The implementation of this blueprint is crucial for achieving the continent's economic advancement and social development.
In business, as the continent lags behind in economic performance in the midst of COVID-19, climate change, and a host of other issues, boosting the private sector is said to be crucial. The African Union heads of state need to pass political decision to improve the digitalization process to scrap limitations in the business sector. Talking to ETV English, leaders of private sector said creating conducive business environment is critical to digitalize and boost the business sector in Africa. Our staff reporter Habtamu Ashagre spoke to some of the participants of the AU Summit on this and compiled the following story.
Over 1.3 billion Africans are hopeful that The AU head of state will discuss key continental issues and came up with vocabulary remedies to major socio-economic concerns. Talking to TV, Mulalam Siyum, who is the CEO of AE Trading Group, said the AU head of sales and governments must come up with critical decisions to stimulate the private business in Africa.
In the next less than 10 years, 95% of trade is going to be digital. And public sectors and private sectors need to prepare themselves. For that, in the last 4 years that we have been supporting African entrepreneurs, particularly focusing on small and medium entrepreneurs, youth and women, under digital capacity building.
More efforts are needed to help the continental keep pace with the rest of the world by digitalizing all business transactions. This also helps bring about betterment in the lives of its people.
From the public sector, what is expected the private sector is that creating an enabling environment on policy and regulatory framework. That has been work under the African Union on the digital strategy framework. That member states has been adapting that framework and that how that can go at the national level and then reaching to the ordinary small and medium entrepreneurs. So creating that enabling environment.
Amane asked for an international president of African Business Council for her past said Africa needs to scale up their political commitment to foster the business sector in Africa. She added that infrastructural facility plays a key role in determining the fate of the private business.
What we need from the African leaders, what policies we need, what legislation to empower our African private sector to create jobs, to promote entrepreneurship. And this would include like financial inclusion. We have to have tailored financial products for our small and medium enterprise, women and youth, because the private sector in Africa is the SMEs are the backbone of the economy of the African private sector. So we need special tailored financial programs. We need digital economy. We need a special procurement policy. One of the things we are now advocating for is to have at least 40% of all the government procurements across Africa local products, because that will give them the space in order to upscale. So this is the real enabling environment.
Ethiopia is providing a good example to other African countries in creating promising activities to stimulate the private sector in its macroeconomy.
The Africa Business Council have among its members the Pan-African Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is here in Ethiopia, and they are doing a great job with reference to advocacy, with reference to business linkages. I mean, not all the countries across the continent are on the same level. There are many countries, they have legislation which is good in one part and the other one, but what we need really is harmonization. Harmonization of all the standards across the continent, harmonization for the financial institution to have low interest rate for investment, to see how we use our scientific expertise, our knowledge, our best practices across the whole continent. So we are under African Union, more than, we are 55 countries. So how is each country, we have to do mapping exercise for the existing resources on the continent and to see how we add value inside the continent and then export our materials with a value added, not as raw materials.
And now take a quick look at the latest foreign exchange rates.
Colourful Cape Town is one of the most multiracial cities in the world. The city sits on South Africa's Cape Peninsula, where the waters of the Atlantic and Indian Oceans converge, and spectacular mountains tumble towards the sea. For decades, Cape Town has been buffeted too by the crosswinds of social upheaval. But just like those early ships, Cape Town had endured some of history's most turbulent waters and set course to an optimistic future. Cape Town's central area is situated in the City Bowl. This amphitheater-shaped area begins at the edge of Table Bay and is backed by the iconic 2-mile-long plateau of Table Mountain. Post-apartheid South Africa is often called the Rainbow Nation, and like a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow, diversity, transformation, and creativity shines out from the city's downtown streets, from its businesses, from its very walls. So come and savor the colors, hope, and freedom of Cape Town.
And finally, President Muhammadu Buhari on Saturday met with the Prime Minister of Palestine, Mohammed Shtayyeh, on the sidelines of the ongoing African Union's Assembly of Heads of Authority and Government taking place in Addis Ababa. Top among their discussion was the need to continue to pursue peace and progress in Africa. Buhari gave an assurance that he would not just pursue peace in Nigeria, but other parts of the world by consistently pushing for justice, fairness, and inclusiveness in global affairs. Buhari also told Shtayyeh that Nigeria remains unwavered in supporting democracy, development, and good governance, particularly in ensuring the rights of individuals and institutions. Quote unquote, as a country, we are doing our best, and we will continue doing our best to ensure justice and fairness, he said. He also assured the Palestinian leader that Nigeria will be consistent in pushing for peace and progress while upholding the tenets of justice. Meanwhile, the Palestinian leader noted that the situation in the Middle East, particularly relations with Israel, had deteriorated over the years, adding that the world needs to know the facts. Shtayyeh thanked President Buhari for his leadership role in the continent. And now take a quick look at tomorrow's weather forecast of major cities across Africa. You're watching ETV English News, the story making headlines. PM Abiy calls on Africans for the establishment of Continental Media Institution. And that's all we had for now. I'm Tabitha John. Many thanks for watching. Have a good night and take care.